Shut down all the nukes! Shut down all the nukes! Shut down all the nukes! 皆さんこんにちは。今日もたくさん参加ありがとうございます。サラサさん、カズミさん、スティーブさん、ゲンタさん、元気に皆さん諦めずにやっていきましょう。 Thank you for joining again our 69th every 11th monthly rally. We have been here standing in front of the Japanese consulate, San Francisco Japanese consulate, since March 11, 2011, Fukushima meltdown disaster. We are here demanding and asking to the government shut down all nukes, decommissioning all nuclear power plants, and never going to militarism to make nuclear weapons. After those severe meltdown disaster, Japanese government never want to learn from Fukushima. Government and the nuclear industry have restarted 2 more nuclear power reactors. The March, they did Oi nuclear plant number 3 reactor, and Genkai plant number 3 reactor. Even this Genkai had a problem after even just 1 week after the restart. They spewed steam from the pipe because the pipe had a 1 centimeter of hole. After passing the so-called severe those nuclear regulation, it still happened like this. And then of course the residents fear of the evacuation plan, how to escape when it happened. Those are still fear. It's never be guided, never be resolved. But next month in May, even 2 more reactors planning to get restarted. And Japan nuclear power plant, which owns the Tokai nuclear plant. The Tokai plant is almost 40 years old plant, so that they are trying to restart, making the old measurement to the those regulations. And amazingly, the TEPCO and the Tohoku Electric Company offered their financial support to this nuclear power company. TEPCO and the government, many people in the world believe that they are not capable to contain this accident. They are spending huge amount of money, people's tax money already, and let's see, estimated 21.5 trillion yen, which is about $189 billion. Those are budget, and then spending money to contain these reactors meltdowns. But I doubt TEPCO and the government are not capable to do that. Instead of putting huge money to Tokyo Olympic, they really should take care of this accident, and then take care of the victims. Anyway, I make my speak out short, and then today I like to read the letters which we write the letter every month, every rally to the Prime Minister for demanding and asking. This time, Atsuko Uchida, who lives in Fullerton, near Los Angeles, wrote. And then she wrote beautiful letters, which I wanted to say also. Most of what I want to say she wrote. So I read her letters first. And then, Don, thank you. This is a letter. So this is the letter for today's. To Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, April 11th, 2018. As I write this letter to you, I'm pondering how we came to this mess. We definitely need accountability, so we won't repeat the same mistake again. The Fukushima Daiichi accident was not a natural disaster, but it was caused by human errors which could have been prevented if we had the proper preparation in place with correct backup batteries and clear line of command in case of emergency. 7 long years passed, and it's about time that we will work together as a civilized nation, because we need to take the responsibility of cleaning up the mess. I was a child when nuclear power plants were constructed, but that doesn't relieve me from these harsh consequences. We, as a nation, ended up allowing the construction. We could not stop it. Now, I'd like to constructively envision what should happen. We shall demand the Japanese government set up an international committee for removal of melted fuels and decommissioning of all nuclear power plants. Fukushima Daiichi is not Japan's problem anymore, but it has become the world's problem because the contamination in the ocean is spreading. We shall demand transparency. Data from illness, not only in Fukushima but nationwide. Data for radioactive contamination need to be disclosed to the public without falsification so that people can make proper decisions whether or not to leave the unsafe area and to seek necessary medical treatment. Any government agencies that collect data are paid by tax, so the data belong to people who pay tax. We shall give free medical treatment for life to those evacuees, regardless of voluntary or not, and compensate for their loss of their home, land, job, or community so they can rebuild a new life somewhere else. It should be determined by radiation level at the time of the accident, not separate by border of town, city, or prefecture. We shall protect the workers at the Fukushima site with labor laws and give them free medical treatment. We shall keep the unsafe area restricted for decades or hundreds of years if necessary. We shall never force former residents move back to unsafe areas by cutting financial and housing support. It's extremely hard for them to lose their home and or land forever, but it's for their and future generations' safety. We shall educate generations of people about the importance and the difficulties of safe storage of radioactive waste and the responsibility to maintain necessary tax budget for safe storage. We shall not have 2020 Tokyo Olympics, but shall spend money towards supporting the evacuees. We shall not serve world's athletes with radioactive water and food and let them walk on diluted and recycled surface soil, once categorized as highly radioactive and removed and stored in bags. We shall never export nuclear energy technology to other countries. Instead, we should be the advocate to ban nuclear weapons and energy. Japan is the only nation that suffered a bombing in Hiroshima and Nagasaki and nuclear power plant accident in Fukushima. After experiencing Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, and Fukushima, we know that the nuclear energy is not sustainable because of the danger from radiation in case of accident and also high cost of decommissioning and radioactive waste storage. It saddens me greatly to think that the Fukushima Daiichi accident was taken advantage by a few people in power in order to silence and to control people in Japan and to turn Japan into a military state. And who will be the victims if Japan will be involved in war? It will be citizens regardless of their beliefs. There have been many articles in major US newspapers on the truth about radioactive wastewater dumped in the ocean for years, and your administration's move towards military state, etc. You can find more true information outside Japan, especially about radioactive contamination and increased illness. I've read articles published in the US saying that there are calls for you and other key administrators to resign due to the recent new scandal on Morimoto Gakuen. I'm sincerely concerned that the future of Japan is bleak. But I'm writing this letter to you believing that when individuals get together, we can make a difference. It might be a a change in Japan, but the world is watching and there is more and more pressure from around the world to stop Japan to go to the wrong direction you are trying to lead into. We'll never give up for our better future. Atsuko Uchida, resident in Fullerton, California. Thank you, Atsuko-san. So speakers start. So first, Steve Delter. Steve.
Okay, I didn't know that. So they still have
Thank you.
Thank you, Chizu. So we're here for the 69th month to protest the restarting of Japanese nuclear plants. The government has said that they are restarting nuclear plants despite the fact that there is likely to be another major earthquake in Japan. And this puts the people of Japan and the people of the world in jeopardy. The government has said that they've decontaminated Fukushima. Everything's fine, but they have not removed the nuclear rods, the melted nuclear rods, and there are thousands of tanks full of radioactive water, which probably would all break apart if there was a major earthquake again, flooding the Pacific Rim. So the madness of this government, the Abe government, supported by the United States, to restart nuclear plants is a threat to the world, it's a threat to Japan, and it needs to be stopped. So that's why we're out here today, demanding that they not restart the nuclear plants, calling for the right of the families and the children not to be forced back to Fukushima, which the government is demanding. The other thing is the government is trying to remilitarize and join the United States in militarization. They want to change Article 9 of the Constitution to eliminate a clause against war. There are also Japanese military companies that now are making nuclear weapons material. So they're trying to militarize and to become a nuclear power. Do we need more nuclear powers? Do we need more nuclear wars? You would think that after Japan went through Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they would have learned that nuclear weapons, nuclear war is a disaster for the people of the world. But this government is driven by profit. It's driven by basically adventurism. And their solution to this crisis is more war. So we're here today to say no more restarting the nuclear plants. We're here today to say defend the families and children of Fukushima. We're here today to stop militarization, the secrecy law and the censorship law which the government is pushing. They're pushing these laws because they want to silence dissent. They want to repress journalists, and they don't want people of Japan to know about the dangers of nuclear power. So we say, shut down the nukes now. Shut 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 the nukes now. So at the same time, we're in the danger of another world war with the madman Trump, who wants to bomb Syria. Well, he is very concerned about a fabricated chemical reaction or chemical thing in Syria. But what about the murder of the Palestinians who were massacred by snipers, by Israeli snipers? Not a word about that by the United States government. So they've got a double standard. This government is putting out Nazi lies. They removed they expelled the diplomats from the United States for alleged poisoning of the counter-agent and his daughter. Well, the daughter has left her position, or the hospital, and she's recovering, and he is recovering. If these were actually the weapons that they claimed to be, they would be dead. They wouldn't be recovering. So this government is actually putting out Nazi propaganda, the American government, leading to world war. It's a great danger to the peace of the world, and the American people have to wake up. The people of the world have to wake up, because we are in danger of another world war. And if Trump can divert the people's attention away from his own corruption, his own escapades and cover-ups, and have a war, he's prepared to do that. And that would be a disaster for the people of Syria, a disaster of people for the Middle East and the entire world. So we say no to war, no to nukes, shut the nukes down now. No to war, no to nukes, shut the nukes down now. Thank you. We have another speaker? Okay, wait, she's gonna...
Yeah, so, thank you, sorry. Next speaker is Dan from the Avalon Alliance. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Well, once again, I'm happy, sad to be here. Another year, another month, more years passing by, and each month I come here, I have more and more problem trying to keep out of my mind what it's going to be like in 50 or 100 years. And that water keeps spilling out because it's just going to have nowhere to go, and it's still highly radioactive, falling into a very large pond called the Pacific Ocean. But we don't know what the effects of 100 years of water going in will have on the local life and being spread by tuna and other ocean-going sea life and bringing it to our shores. So I don't have a great uplifting message for today. I just wish that the world showed a bit more awareness of where it's at, where it's going, who its leaders are, how to get rid of the bad ones. That's a big problem, getting rid of the bad leaders. There's more and more of them seeming to come forward every day espousing, at least autocratic tendencies, if not fascist. And the more we push back, the better, because these guys can't be allowed to keep having life their way. And I pray and meditate for the people of Japan that this can be stopped, and I pray for the world that no more of this will happen, knowing full well the possibility that it might well happen, either in Japan again, because Japan is so seismically active and has so many nuclear power plants, or somewhere else that's seismically active and doesn't have quite so many nuclear power plants, but our plants down on the Central Coast are still going, Diablo Canyon 1 and 2. They'll be going for the next few years. There's other places that could have the same kind of tsunami-triggered, earthquake-triggered events that could happen. So, all I know is that technology is certain. Technology tells us over and over that a complex system is only as strong as its weakest component. And one of these days we will learn that everything possible that can go wrong cannot be fixed. And at some point we just need to learn to do without. I hope that day comes soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Each time I stand here every month, I'm, I have to disclose that children's thyroid cancer patients are still increasing. Every 3 months or quarterly, the prefecture announcing the numbers of the patient. This time at the March, they announced that 197 patients. That is end of 2017, December 31st number. So this time the 3 kids, three more kids than the previous check. So it is really sadly, cancer numbers, patients are increasing. Last year, I think March, the government declared 4 towns and villages they were decontaminated and safe enough, so that they invited previous resident those people come back, I think like 10 or 15% of people, but the majority people are over 65 years old. And then this April they added 5 more towns and villages. But the problems are still the same, that those senior people come back, but there were not enough caregivers. The caregivers are not enough in Japan anyway. Japan is really aged society, but especially for majority of population in those decontaminated area, so-called decontaminated, but it's not safe. Senior people, they are facing the caregivers shortage. So Japan and the Fukushima meltdown disaster continuing having problem and continuing not contained the melted core. People still cannot close enough so that we don't know exactly where, we don't know how to retrieve. Even the original date up to start retrieve the melted fuel, they already extended 3 years later to start, which is 2021. So that do you know those 2020 Olympic festival come first? Let's play first, and then let's close eyes, shut eyes on the Fukushima's ugliness. Let's have fun in Olympic first, then they are planning to start removal of the melted fuels, but who knows? I really don't think they can start 2021 even, because we never faced this task that really nobody really can do, retrieve those fuels. So really, as I wrote letter, the international support, not only Japan, we really need all head, very clever head, and then we need to know how to retrieve those or how to contain this mess. 7 years after, people are forgetting about Fukushima. But Fukushima's disaster is still there. Mess is still sitting there, and then government is shutting our eyes, shifting our eyes to the more cheerful Olympic. We condemn the Olympic, spending money not for Olympic. Please take care of the victims, especially for children. Hope people, Dan just mentioned it, that hope people are aware of the today's Fukushima condition and the Japan's condition, and the world is getting really contaminated by ocean. It's not Japan's problem really, it's the world's problem. So that's the reason we have to come next month too. Today is April 11th, so the next time is May 11th. We will gather here again, and we have to protest to the Japanese government, the nuclear policy, and the USA's policy. We do not give up. So I'd like to meet you, everybody, again at the May 11th again. Thank you for joining today. Shut down all the nukes! 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 Fukushima never again! Fukushima never again! Fukushima never again! Fukushima never again! Hiroshima never again! Nagasaki never again! Shut down all the nukes! 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 Thank you, and that's it.
I want to make
Steve,
one statement.
one more.
Yeah, one more announcement. One of the contaminated sites in San Francisco, 2 contaminated sites, are Treasure Island and the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard. And the U.S. government brought contaminated ships from nuclear blasts in the Pacific back to San Francisco to the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard, and they sandblasted them. They were supposedly decontaminated these radiated ships, and they weren't really decontaminating them. They were spreading the radioactive waste into Hunters Point Bayview and contaminating the people there. They also had a radiological laboratory, the Navy, and they tested animals there, and they also tested human beings. They gave human beings radioactive material to see how they would react. So this site has been highly contaminated over decades and decades, and Congresswoman Pelosi and Senator Feinstein pushed the Navy to turn it over to remediate, supposedly remediate the site. And over $1 billion has spent supposedly cleaning up the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard and Treasure Island. And we have now learned, as a result of protests of whistleblowers from Tetra Tech and Test America, who said that there were falsified tests at this site. We have now learned that 95% of the tests were fake at this site. And that means there's fraud. This company, Tetra Tech, conducted fraud to say that it was cleaned up. You can't clean up these sites. They're permanently contaminated. But what happened is they wanted to turn them to profitable developers, to condos, $1 million condos, and the same with Treasure Island. So this coming Monday, at 11 a.m. in front of the Federal Building, 450 Golden Gate. There will be a press conference to demand the criminal investigation and prosecution of Senator Feinstein and Congresswoman Pelosi. Congresswoman Pelosi's cousin was an executive with Lennar, the developer. So she had a financial interest in developing these condos. Senator Feinstein's husband, Richard Blum, owns Perini Construction, and he's involved in development. So here you have our politicians in San Francisco personally involved in corruption and silence about $1 billion fraud. Now, if you're going to spend $1 billion, why not spend it on health care? Why not spend it on housing for working people? That is what the money should be spent for. Instead, they spend it on a fake, fraudulent eco-fraud. It's the largest, as one expert has said, a labor lawyer, it's the biggest eco-fraud in the history of the United States because $1 billion has been spent on fraudulent testing. So we're going to be there on Monday at 11 a.m. We're going to have a press conference, and victims of Treasure Island are going to speak out who got cancer on the island as a result of the contamination. There are people that have been put there on homes, and they've gotten sick as a result of the serious contamination. You're going to say something? Yeah.
Give just an update, oops, sorry. Just to put an exclamation point on that, a few years ago we were able to stop the home porting in San Francisco of the USS Missouri nuclear weapons battleship. And the thing that finally put the stake in the heart of that project was the threat that would be released by dredging. They would have to make the entrance to the port deeper, so they would have to dredge the port, and the fear of disturbing all those radioactive wastes that are down deep in the mud now was the final straw that kept that project from moving forward. So they're still there. In that case, nuclear waste was our friend, but it's not our friend if it gets into the atmosphere, that's for sure. So thank you again. I'm glad everybody came, and I see you next month.
Yay, thank you. Thank you. So see you next month, May 11th. Thank you.